Yeah. I like that beat. AM1 back at y'all with another stream. I was just on one earlier. But yeah, we're gonna talk specifically more diet, nutrition, and how that ties into fitness mindset or mindset shift. If you are of the need for getting your priorities in order, getting your mind right, getting your fitness right, because it all ties in together from a holistic perspective. And it sounds all woo woo-ish, but just being a complete person, you know what I mean? Like there's nuance to life, levels to the game, and you want to balance it all out, and you want to be effective in all aspects. So it is holistic, right? But I got one of my guys, one of my YouTube buddies, longtime friend of mine here on the YouTube streets, Coach DC in the back. We're about to bring him in a second. But yeah, we're gonna talk about diet, nutrition, carnivore diet, keto, something I'm super duper interested in, and just in general, fitness, coaching, and just overall mindset. Let's bring him in. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Coach DC. Coach DC, what's good?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you pulling up on me. Long overdue. I've been off and on with the YouTube in the algorithm. But
Same here. I've been working on my clips page, so I've been using the clips to grow my page. If you've seen, so
oh no, I have. I'm like, I'm about to have to take a page out of your book too and get more active with that. I'm working a few angles overall, but been running up the whole other channel. I don't know if you know, I got the whole other AM1 Lifestyle channel, but we still want to leverage this channel as well. So just trying to balance that out because you have two channels, right?
Yeah, I have my all fitness channel too, and I'm putting mostly fitness stuff over there. But over here, I'm just looking at most of the clips are a lot of different discussions. I think we need to actually have, about different things in life. Like you said, diet, carnivore diet, regular diet. It's what do we call this thing? What is it? The SAD. What is it?
Standard American diet.
There you go, Standard American diet. That thing.
Jeez.
So we need to really have a conversation about that. And the interesting thing to me is I was talking to a client the other day, and we were walking on a treadmill, and I think her daughter called it like 10:20. And when she got off the phone, I looked at her and I said, "How long have we been training?" And she said, "About 10 years. And I said, "Your daughter been alive that long?" And she was like, "Yeah, fool, she in her 30s. And I was like, "And she don't know that we train at 10 o'clock every morning? Why she called it 10 o'clock?"
Wait, that we what at 10 in the morning?
No, we train at 10 o'clock every morning.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
We've been training at 10 o'clock every morning for the last 10 years. And so her daughter calls one morning, and at some mornings like 10:20, and I'm like, "Are we stupid? Do we not learn by now? Your mother's at the gym. This is her time to work out and get a fresh start for herself. Why are you messing that up right now?" But we've gone into this individualistic, ignorant era, which is shown all over the place right now, which is the reason why I walk around now and I just watch people. And if you just watch people at a store, do you see how many broke down people there are, bro?
Man.
I take my mother-in-law to the hospital. You see how many people are walking all slow, or some old ladies that shouldn't even be driving are getting out of a car and getting her thing down by herself. And I'm like, bro, that's where this individualistic society has brought us to, where we broke down alone. We need somebody for real. So and even in my house right now, my daughter had a fever 103, and my wife was in the ER yesterday.
Whoa.
So you got to work with what you got. And this whole single I'm alone thing is making us break down that much faster, bro.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic for to talk about. And I know you've addressed that in some of your short clips. And within this sort of algorithm that we've kind of both mingled in these discussions about coupling with the opposite sex and all that, and that being a hurdle for a lot of guys. And I get some of the points being made, but at the same time, my default position has always been strength in numbers, herd animals, but at the same time, you got to be a strong link in the chain. So you got to be building yourself no matter what, either way.
I was listening to you earlier. You were talking about the red pill, and so this week I got stuck on Schopenhauer, the first part of the week, and it turns out that Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and a couple of other philosophers actually started the red pill algorithm a long time ago. They started talking about women and their nature and how they react. And dude, they you talking about we talk bad, men talk bad now? Nah. To them, women were playing out evil.
Mm.
Period. So that red pill thing didn't start with us. We maybe repackaged it and turned it into the red pill, but it didn't start with us. It started with men, philosophers a long time ago talking about the natures of men and women, period.
That's an interesting discussion on a lot of levels, for sure. And I get like that gets super duper deep. But even just
Mm-hmm.
from the perspective of more recent men's rights activists kind of vibes, or even like Tom Likas or some of these other guys, he's like
Uh-huh.
late 90s, 2000s. What's considered as the manosphere that a lot of these guys kind of talked about. Um, and then the black manosphere, and then my ignorance coming into it thinking, oh, this is guys talking about really building and skills, resources, that whole discussion.
Uh-huh.
Me thinking it was that, and that's how I got brought into it with O'Shea.
Uh-huh.
And then realizing, oh, then it's, black plight, black struggles, because black YouTube, black manosphere. Okay, cool. Solutions, all that. Me being from the Bay, there's kind of that, revolutionary-ish kind of, okay, let's be active kind of spirit. And then having to, age through that and kind of realize, okay, all that, there's some nuance to that whole discussion, and some growth had to take place with that. But I don't know, I just say the fast forwarding, it became more and more clear to me, again, that same strong link in a chain. If you're going to talk chain, community, group, strength in numbers, and I'm only saying it through the lens of hearing guys bang their head against the wall, talking about more externally focused things than
Uh-huh.
willingness to focus on self-improvement. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of you being a coach, because and I want to talk about that, because you've been a coach for a while, in the sort of guidance and direction you can give versus what I'm finding to be super fascinating. We're just talking about this off camera, the pushback that you get of certain things, and just kind of the watching people struggle against doing things they pretty much kind of know they need to do, and being able to coach them through that, better ways to do it. But I don't know, it's almost, I have a dark side, the petty side of me kind of laughs like, what is going on? Like, we know, even for myself,
Uh-huh.
we got to do these things. So why are we playing these games? Especially when you factor in the like age thing, because
Uh-huh.
I'm interacting with more middle-aged people, and it's like, you ain't got time for these games. What are you doing? But
Something the last 4 years and the last administration showed me was that a lot of people will go with the flow or go with the society of the moment. And we saw that. A lot of people went with the society of the moment. We saw a whole bunch of people come out in the letter agencies and all these other things. And then we saw, of course, a whole people turn around when it started to turn around. And then we saw the people in the middle that were like, yo, this is some BS in the beginning and are still going to be them through the storm. But the thing was to watch that and understand that. And understand that at that time, that era, because of that administration, they were pushing that. It's like listening to Doge now talk about USAID. And every time I listen, I hear the same thing, which means they were pushing the LGBTQ whatever agenda across the world with taxpayer money in every way, shape, or form. I mean, I can list it out, but I'm not going back to that right now. I have a list somewhere. And I'm like, so they were using our money to push that across the world. And of course, the world was responding by people coming out like that or going with that social order of the time. But now that it's changed, we see the reverse going on, especially in the White House in the government right now, and we see the fire that's causing. Because before we had this where this was acceptable, this is beautiful, this is lovely. We're gonna put this in every school. We're going to have drag queens in your school. And now we got Trump, and it's like, no. So, of course, we got all the babies on the street whining and crying and fighting and destroying things. And, of course, all the babies in the street have no idea what actual violence is. That's why there are babies out there crying on the street.
Okay, so that was a different thought process than what I had, but for sure, I mean that's a whole other level of the game in a sense that to go there, I batch that in with collective levels of essentially subconscious, or maybe indirect is a better word, but mental illness displaying itself in such ways where, to your point, people who haven't experienced real drama or real violence, real poverty, and almost operating from a standpoint of we're not really in touch with how grimy it really could be. We're in a certain level of comfort to the point where we have to almost make there be some kind of problem. I heard somebody said it the other day, but it's a no statement. People come up with a problem for every solution. So it's almost like a mental illness kind of thing. And I say it that way because I think a lot about the idea of, a phrase I always say, eat fake food, build a fake body, expect fake outcomes, fake interactions. Essentially, if you're operating with eating fake food and the deficiencies that will come with that, even trying to eat real food, there could be deficiencies, but essentially prolonged mental illness to a degree where that's like people's baseline. So then if you tie that into people's perspective, trying to operate in a political spectrum or what they're fighting against, they don't even have a leg to stand on, but yet they're still out literally on the street holding a poster.
Exactly. And they don't even know who they hate or why they hate them. They have no idea what they've done. But it's very interesting. It's really like they're NPCs, non-player characters in the game, just running around, with their signs. And I'm like, and when other people talk to them, they don't know why they hate. They just hate. And I'm like, how do you get there? I got to have a why for anything, period. My clients know, if I'm doing this exercise, my client will explain to you what I do in the exercise and what muscles working before I can, because I've explained it to them at least 3 times. So if there's not a why, there's number one, no try. And number two, if there's not a why, there's no understanding. And a lot of these people don't know why, they're just doing. And I'm not that person. I didn't never go for the whole just do it thing. You got to understand.
I'm similar in that, like very inquisitive to the point where, I got in trouble as a child a lot for that. Like I need to know why, I need answers. And it's like, who are you to question, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but I'm a child. Aren't I supposed to be figuring out the world and learning versus just because I said so, or that's just how it is. It's like, no, I need to know more. Tell me more. Tell me more. And then, to that point, in the past, it's been for years, for decades, but in the past 5 years, especially 2020, the need to have that much more understanding about my own body. I've always been into fitness, had older brother that was into fitness, health. Like in my last stream, talked about, losses that I've taken on the health tip, but definitely more so in the last 5 years, especially since 2020. I need to know more about the whys and the what's and the hows. How does my body work? What's going on? I need answers. I don't like the idea of the trajectory of government just across the board and seeing how government plus media, because I'm a videographer, so I study things from a very deep psychological propaganda, public relations kind of mentality, journalistic integrity style, leave no stone unturned, get all sides of the story. So applying that more to health and fitness, it made me say, oh, there's so much. I knew that there was funny business going on, but when you tie that into some type of a representative government concept, and that's tied in with health, but then we see poor health outcomes and the decline of health and wellness. It's like, well, what is going on here? Who's subsidizing and paying for this? Taxpayer money paying for poor outcomes, but no accountability for it. We're on our own. oh, cool. I'm okay with that. So then I need to learn more about this for myself and
Definitely.
take the true, honor myself as a being, as a man, and
Hmm.
say, I need to know what's going on with my body and how this works versus somebody telling me. Because the people who are telling me what to do, they keep getting it wrong
Hmm.
for me and for everybody else, but nobody bothers to question that. So that's a weird thing. So then, from my mindset, oh, marketing, I understand marketing. Then obviously the rise of social media, distractions. I just covered that on my last stream. The booby traps with the food. When you tie it all together, it paints kind of a bleak picture, but I see it as extremely empowering, and it's been extremely empowering for myself. What do you think about that, though? I mean, kind of where are we at? Or I don't
You
want
know,
to.
for I learned this from another teacher a long time ago, and he said, "You know what? This is your life. You should be your own crash test dummy." And I was like, "Explain." He was like, "Yo, this is your life. Test out everything, and then find out what works. You're the scientist here. Test out everything, find out what works." And I was like, "Huh, makes a lot of freaking sense." So that's what I started doing. I started testing out everything. I just didn't listen to one religion. I went to check them all out. I just didn't do one workout. I went to check them all out, you know. And it's like I remember when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a ninja because I was always watching ninja movies. And I was like, in the end, I actually kind of made myself a ninja in all these different parts, which can have something to do with the body, the mind, and progressing forward. So we're supposed to be our own crash test. I mean, we're supposed to test these things and find out what works for us. Like I found out that, carnivore works for me. I can get as lean and as fit as I want to be in carnivore. Now, is my energy going to bottom out and steady out? Yes, fine. But and if I want to build the muscle back, yes, I can add some more carbs. I can build the muscle back, or I can go back down. But the thing is to understand how I work, how this body works, and then I teach it to everybody else. It's like I had this conversation today with one of my clients, and she said a friend of hers wants her to go to a yoga weightlifting class where they lift light weights and do yoga at the same time. And I was like, okay. She's like, what do you think about that? I said, okay, I got some serious problems with that right there. I said, number one, why are you going to put yoga with weights? You probably ain't doing the yoga right first in the first place. So why are you going to put weights with it and make it even worse to your body position? It really doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, this is what America does. We take perfectly wonderful things like yoga and parse them apart and use them as products, turn them into profit, and they turn into yoga with weights or beers and burpees or crap like this. And I'm like, okay, so think about this. If you're lifting weights, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get stronger. Yes, okay. So if I'm lifting weights, I'm trying to get stronger and I'm trying to pump up my weights and get this burn. In yoga, what are you trying to do? You're trying to stretch them back out. Is that going to work? No, thank you. Because that's complete hypocrisy. You're going back and forth. You're trying to stretch the muscle out at the same as build a muscle. That doesn't work. So it's just, it's just what America does. We take
It's
all
almost like
things.
a gimmick, like
Yeah.
just for the sake of commercialized. Let's gimmick this thing out and put this together just so we have a unique business offering, but not really it making sense.
Yes. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if it makes sense to the human body. They don't care. The question is, can we sell it? And I've tried to be that person. I even thought about lying and all this. I'm like, dude, you can't even do it. I'm like, it's horrible. You can't even do it. You won't do it. I won't put my that kind of my energy into something like that because then I got to keep it going. And I'm like, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not here for that. So
yeah, I know what you mean. Like just to think about all of the stuff that people are selling and doing. I've struggled with this for years in the sense that I'm just, it sounds funny to say it, but I'm such not a shady person to where when I see people doing shady business, part of it is like, damn, people are buying that. I'm not trying to hate on what they're doing, but I can't do that. But then also thinking, wow, if I ran it up like that and did that, I could kill it knowing what I'm capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't bring myself to knowingly tell somebody or sell something shady. And I think I'm creative enough to be like, nah, I don't need to even do it in a shady way.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, so you actually touched on a couple things I was going to ask, because we didn't just do a formal introduction. Tell the
Mm-hmm.
folks about yourself, Coach DC, Intense Fit. Let people know your business, your background, your areas of focus.
Okay. I am Coach DC. I'm the owner operator of Intense Fitness and Personal Development. I specialize mostly in kids' emotional development. How to express yourself properly and appropriately, and also in mostly all ages I deal with right now, but mostly teenagers. Yeah, mostly teenagers. And mostly adults. I deal with building muscle, and staying mobile. And those are two big things, because mobility deals with your joints, and muscle deals with your muscles, and you got to understand the difference between the two. So that's what I do. I've been
And
doing
how?
it.
Oh, go.
Go ahead.
There it is. And I was going to ask how long.
25 years.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. And I know you alluded to this before, but have sort of leveraged a lot of different modalities. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Is there a
Um,
go-to that you like to leverage more, or you kind of work through a few different things?
it depends on what I need out of that client at that time. Like the lady I was training there today, she wants to gain muscle. She lost a lot of weight because, of course, she went 75% carnivore. So she's lost a lot of weight. She's lost like maybe 30 pounds, easy. And so she's lean and strong, but she's got a little skin now. So in the last month, we've been working on building muscle. And like last week, she looked at her arms. She's like, "Wow, that started quick." I'm like, "Yo, we just changed gears, switched to building muscle instead of burning fat so much, and now this is where we're at." So now we still do some cardio, but we don't do as much as we did before when we were in the burning phase. So it's just knowing your client and knowing what they need for where they are in this space and place in life.
Nice.
And that's the hard thing about being a trainer.
Yeah, no, just having more tools in the toolbox and just the leverage you can pull, and kind of knowing and
Mhm.
being able to, obviously, I think obviously you're good at building a trust with your clients to where they can, say, let me get you there
Mhm.
and come this way. As I'm getting more into this, just understanding the psychology of, motivating people and coaching them through certain angles. And most of the people I'm working with, they're coming to me because I'm kind of doing it in a reverse kind of way, because they're hearing me already talk about
Mhm.
areas of focus that I'm interested in. And they're like, I like that. Let me know more about that. So it's not too much of an arm twist, so to speak. But
Yeah. Mhm.
I've been talking to a lot of trainers, personal trainers, coaches in the last 2 years, more so. Started doing video work with personal trainers as I'm leaning into doing my own coaching strategies.
Mhm.
So it's just a kind of an interesting world. The beauty of being a videographer, I get to learn so much and be a fly on the wall and soak up so much from different angles. But um, your level of knowledge on it is, I know we've been talking about this stuff for years. And
Well, I've done well. You would think you were talking about things I've done, and I was like, okay, so let me see. Done CrossFit. I was first. That was my first certification was CrossFit. Then there was NASM. Then there was TRX. Then there was about 2 or 3 years of yoga. I got certified in yoga, and I just wanted everything that I could understand. And then I did some running programs, and I ran 1,000 miles in 2016 just to learn how to run, because I'm like, I teach running now, so, and most of my kids are awesome. So I learned all these things, then I apply all these things, and then I teach all these things. And that's the only way. That's the only way I see to do it. And then that's funny. That is very funny. And then I did Muay Thai for 10 years and
nice,
kickbox for about 7 or 8.
nice, nice.
So
combat training too. Yeah, because definitely you've been, an advocate of boxing and talking about boxing as a fitness strategy as well for years. So I know that's been part of your repertoire. Um, Interesting. So, part of it is, this is my guy, so we're kind of catching up. But part of what I wanted to get into, and we kind of broached the topic a little bit. Let me know. You said you did 100 days of carnivore. You did this before me, so I mean, we're overdue to talk about this. I'm only like a year and a half into really diving in on animal base. Keto style carnivore, different variations of that. I come in and out of some different things, been trying different things over the last year and a half. And at certain points, not having it as perfected as I wanted. But let the folks know what got you into even attempting carnivore. You did 100 days of carnivore. I remember you talking about that. Just walk us through how you came across it and kind of how you went into it and kind of what you thought about it, think about it.
I heard about it because people were curing themselves of, diabetes and kidney issues and all these things. And I was like, that's some bullcrap. Of course, me being a skeptic. And then I started listening and they were talking about the different things that happened. And I was like, okay, so let me try this thing. And I'm already a heavy meat eater anyway. So, and very light on the vegetables, if any at all. So I tried it, and then within the first, I want to say 3 or 4 days, clarity came. It was like my head it was like I've been walking around in fog all this time and I didn't know it. It's like that clarity came and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then in a couple of weeks, I started just being able to go to sleep with no problem. Sleep when I want to, wake up when I want to, no issues. I was like, wow. And then all of my skin started glowing like I was freaking taking some kind of supplement or something. It's just that a whole lot of things changed, and I was like, wow, so this thing does work. And then I went back to it, and then I heard somebody talking about vegan before, and I'm like, yeah, well, that don't work. And I was thinking about, like, why does it not work? I was like, well, we've been eating meat since we've been here. How do you think we got to this point? You think there was gardens of plants that we knew that we could eat? No, they were mostly poison. It's only recently we've been able to eat these things now. So I'm like, we've always been meat eaters. It's just in our entitled society where we can have the choice on not eating meat. Because other places, they don't have a choice. If there's meat in front of them, they're going to eat it because that's the only thing they got to eat. But in our entitled society, we have a whole lot of choices that we don't understand are because of our society, like freedom of speech. I really didn't understand how much of a huge thing that was until I started looking at the UK and understanding, they are locking people up for calling people names on Facebook, making people feel bad. And you're talking about an authoritarian dictatorship. All we got to do is look over there. We see examples of that already. So,
yeah, I have a friend that lives in Mexico, and he went out there and built basically like a farm. And he talks about the idea of, he used to live in the Bay Area, he used to live in LA, and he talks about the, being around people that are like, oh, I'm vegan. And he's like, just paraphrasing like kind of what he said about it, but he was like, that's definitely like a first world kind of thing where people have the privilege to even talk about what they would and wouldn't eat. Mind you, he goes and builds his farm in Mexico and has to really get it out of the dirt and the mud for real. And then he said he just scoffs at anybody talking about I'm vegan. And then just when you even talk about the idea of that, and I try to be objective about it as I research it more, because I told you I've operated with different diets over years and whatnot, had certain thoughts on it, was not too from like a moral perspective, but just thought, oh, I can get the same amount of nutrients from plants. Just not knowing what I didn't know. Then now fast forward, I'm like, well, wait a minute. We are talking about human development over time. We got to get into the seasons throughout the year. We got to get into microclimates, what type of vegetation is available relative to what kind of animals are available. Like, that's the thing. I don't have a dog in the fight more
Mhm.
so than what's the best nutrient density of food. And they say, well, we're in a technological society now. We can have food shipped. But then I'm like, should we be eating fruits and vegetables off season from regions where they don't naturally grow? There's a lot of different
Yeah.
discussions
Mhm.
about that. And then just sheer nutrient density. I'm more interested in that. Like, objectively, where do you get the most nutrient density for the essential things that the human body needs? I look at it more from that way. I don't get into too much else because I just try to literally stick to the
Mhm.
objective facts more than and how anybody feels about it.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think staying with that helps me parse through who has more of an agenda. I eat this way, so I'm better than you, or you should eat this way. Because you know that weird ego thing where it's like, well, I
Mhm.
like this thing and I do this, so you need to do it. And if you don't do it, that's almost like an assault on me.
Exactly. Mhm.
It's weird, but go
Mhm.
ahead. Because I really just want to know more your thought process of how you got into it, more so than me talking. But uh, very interesting. You're hearing people talk about it, curing certain things. You tried it, better sleep, more consistent ability to just go to sleep on demand. Apparently, it helped remedies maybe some sleep challenges.
Mhm.
Vibrant skin. Uh, Talk more about it.
The interesting thing was my energy. Like I said, that whole clearing of the head thing, and my energy was never up and down anymore. It was just like a flat line. You know how you usually go up and down depending on, you get hangry if you haven't eaten long enough. But there was none of that. It was just a flat line throughout the day, no matter what. That was the most interesting thing about it right there, and the clarity I got from it. The
And let me
clarity
ask you
was.
this though,
Mhm.
and sorry to cut you off, but I've literally been wanting to ask you this for months.
Mhm.
I was literally going to text you and just ask you about this, but um, you're already way more fit than most. You're a coach,
Mhm.
so what do you think about the idea of you going into carnivore? Leveraging some of these benefits you maybe heard about, you're
Mhm.
experiencing it yourself, but you're already more fit than most. So do you think there's like a sort of a difference in if somebody who's less active, less fit approaching these things? Like, I guess in my estimation, what I'm trying to ask is, do you find it interesting that you had some of these benefits even despite that you already are more fit than most? I guess that's kind of what I'm asking, if that makes sense.
Yes. I was very surprised by that because like you said, I am more fit than most. I work out with my clients most days and I work most days. So it was very interesting to see that, even though my energy changed, I was still keeping up. I wouldn't have any problem with that. I did have some low energy days every now and then when I was pushing heavy weight, but besides that, no, it was very interesting that I just kept up and it felt good and it was simple. You talking about simple? It was
Man,
just so simple. I mean, one of my boys was like, "Well, some people can eat a steak a day." I'm like, "Bruh." I'm like, even going to Food Line, you can see you can eat a little strip steak a day.
he said he can't eat a steak a day.
No, he said some people can't afford a steak a day.
Oh, a
Yeah,
Ford.
and
Okay.
I was like, "Bruh, yeah, I've been to Food Line. Even going to Food Line, you can afford a little flank steak a day. Period."
Okay, so that's interesting because then that's something I had to get into, right?
Mhm.
Because I spent most of my adult life actively avoiding red meat, thinking I was, don't beat me up in the
Mhm.
comments too much, y'all. Thinking I was, yeah, I don't need red meat or it's unhealthy or blah blah blah, and
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
eating hot bar food at Whole Foods with laced with seed oils, thinking I was didn't had no idea. But yeah.
But again, that's one of those. I call it spiritual warfare. Everybody else calls it propaganda. I call it spiritual warfare because what it does is the propaganda gets in your head, and like we were talking about before, you don't even know why you're saying it, but you're repeating stuff you don't even know why. and you're repeating it with hate behind it. So I call it spiritual warfare because it actually gets in your head and then you recirculate it and you actually believe it and you spit it out.
Man. Yeah.
And most people don't look at it like that. So when I hear somebody spit stuff out, like I heard my best friend, I was talking to her one day and she was giving some Kamala propaganda to me. And I was like, who you hear that from, girl? And I was like, who you been talking to? And she told me, well, my girlfriend said this and my girlfriend said that. And I was like, yeah, I knew you was repeating somebody else's shit. That's rude, you know. And she said, I was repeating it because of this and this. And I was like, see? And you even got the attitude and the hate behind it to repeat it with. Girl, keep on going. Come on, give me some more. Boy, she was mad. She was mad, bro. But it was just right there. And I'm like, and I've heard it from my family. Everybody in my family is like, yo, you can't vote for Trump. And my Uncle Brad was like, well, I've been a Democrat. I don't care how long you've been a Democrat. I think that's dumb. You've been a Democrat for this many years and you ain't questioning them on Jack?
Yeah, that again, that whole discussion where we get into
I'm like, I question everything on principle alone. You think I'm gonna just go along with something for 30 years and not question it?
especially something that's relative to governance and management of resources in a situation where someone's saying, hey, give me some of your time labor analog of money every year. So it's like, yeah, I need to ask more questions about what y'all are doing and see the outcomes in a favorable way for myself and for the citizens, right?
I need to ask some questions. I'm like, and this is I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and he's Vietnamese, and we were talking about we were watching Jamie Foxx when on his comeback tour, right, in Atlanta, and I was listening to it, I was listening to it, and he was like, "Man, he's good, isn't he?" And I was like, "Yeah, he's good at pathos." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Pathos is a part of the rhetoric, and it's nothing but the emotional part. And we know if we listen long enough that Black people always go for the emotional stuff. It ain't gotta make sense, but if we get your heartstrings into it, we got you. We can turn you into a hateful thing. We can turn you to a prideful thing. We can make you hate white people. We can make you do all these things. All we got to do is pull your emotional strings and play you like a fiddle." And I was like, all you got to do is listen. Now watch how the people react to him using emotion to get emotion back. I'm like, that's that rhetoric that they do on us all the time. That's why it's propaganda. That's why I call it spiritual warfare, because it's deep. And it gets you crying and all in your feelings about such and such and your family and all this. And I'm like, but then you look at it, you're like, it really didn't make any sense. And it didn't help anybody.
Well, I mean, that's arguably, because that gets into the wheelhouse that, I'm such a fan and student of understanding essentially psychological warfare, psychological manipulation tactics. We're going to get you on an intellectual level or some emotional core level or, animal instinct level or anywhere in between or any kind of, crossing of that. We're going to leverage fear. We're going to leverage sex drive. We're going to leverage whatever we can and play mind games with you. Simple divide and conquer tactics, pit you against this side, use race, use whatever divisive context. I totally get it. I'm so well versed in it that where it's like, oh yeah, totally. I see it to the point where it's laughable in most cases when I do see it. But yeah, playing emotional games with people, which is interesting because the whole dialectic, the divide of just diets, right? The whole concept of, people short circuiting their brain over. I mean, now before I heard people talk about carnivore or vegan on the other end, and then the fighting in between that, and it's just the human nature of wanting conflict. And then people who are, low carb, keto, all the way to carnivore, infighting in that side is just interesting. In a comical kind of way, but because it's like, we just want people to be healthy and sort this stuff out. And I think there's a true benefit and pushing what I would call a golden era if more people realize a phrase that I've been saying lately: food fixes everything. So if people feel that the world is not operating to its optimal potential, for the most part, food fixes everything, in the sense that if you eat better food or understand how it works, understand how it interacts with your body and what real food is versus these hyper palatable recreational drugs, really
Mhm.
sorting that out and calling it exactly what it is, then it's less easy to be manipulated by any kind of social engineers, propagandists. There's not going to be so much people just losing their minds, losing their emotional states, just losing their faculties. 'Cause, people who are more emotional are more easy to
That
manipulate.
goes back to the crash test dummy thing I think I don't know if we said that up here. I know we said it backstage about being your own crash test dummy. It's like when I was young, I had seizures, and I didn't understand why I had them, but I always had a migraine headache before, and then I'd have a seizure. Well, through the ages, I started doing some dieting stuff, and actually at Dr. Atkins' diet, I realized that, I ain't had a migraine in 2 months.
Mm.
What am I eating? Nothing but meat. Nothing but meat. Even this time, whenever, and that's one of the main things that went away was I have a migraine in forever. And then yesterday, my daughter had a migraine, and she had a migraine, and she had eaten something, and about 1:30 in the night, she came to me and she threw up in the toilet, and I was rubbing her back, and I said, "Okay, so what did you eat before?" And she told me what she ate before, and then I said, now that you've thrown up, your head feels better, doesn't it?" And she was like, "Yeah, it does." And I was like, "Huh, yeah, your headaches come from your stomach, just like Daddy's did." It just took me 20 or 30 years to figure it out because they want to put medicine on top of it instead of saying, why is this happening?
Hmm.
So just things like that. Understanding, dude, my migraines come from my stomach, and it can be ugly.
So here's the thing: food fixes everything. Use the migraine reference, and I appreciate you sharing that. Atkins
Mhm,
diet, which is basically like a keto variant. So that makes a lot of sense because they've leveraged intentional keto diets and studies and research talked about how they used it
mhm.
to heal all kind of epilepsy and migraines and
Yeah.
all kind of cognitive decline issues and everything else, and just the benefits of how your body can actually, once keto adapted, the benefits of that. And it's interesting, right? Because to put your body in a metabolic ketosis state means that you're going to eat less carbs. And if we
Mhm,
think about it from an economic standpoint, the implications of that are if people are consuming less carbohydrates, then by default, you're eating less plants, you're eating less processed food for sure.
mhm.
Right. So then that's bad news for a whole lot of industries. So
Horrible news.
that's something that dawned on me very quickly.
The interesting thing is they know this. The hospitals know this, the doctors know this. It's like, and I'll give you an example. My cousin went to Raleigh, and I think he was going for a photo shoot. He's a photographer also, and he had to stop because his insulin was at like 600 or something like that. His blood sugar was at 600. Yeah, his blood sugar was at 600, and he stopped at a hotel room, and finally, my uncle had to drive up there and take him to a hospital. Find out that it got up to like 900. Guess what they did?
Gave him more insulin.
No, they made him fast for 3 days.
Oh, okay. They actually. Oh, okay. I see.
They
Yeah.
made him. They made him fast for 3 days. Gave him fluid, but they made him fast for 3 days. I'm like, see, right there. They
Oh,
know.
oh, okay. So, right. That's an excellent point. They
Hmm.
fasted him and probably gave him more electrolytes, more
Hmm.
salt, whatever.
Exactly.
Uh, so interesting point, because I was going to say, along with the implications relative to the food industries and especially the processed food, then we got to talk about the pharmaceutical industry, because if they know they're telling people to eat, 60% of your daily calorie intake should be carbohydrates, knowing it's inconvenient for most people to just eat, period, then there's fast food that's available that's literally designed to be hyper palatable
Hmm.
drugs, low nutrient density, deficient in nutrients, that's going to make you even more hungry, and that has preservatives and this, that, and the third. So in other words, more people doing keto having those benefits while at the same time not partaking in as much fruits and vegetables and much fake processed food is bad for the food industries themselves, but it's
Mhm.
bad for the pharmaceutical industry because then that's less people having the ill effects from those foods, right?
Of course, I know. I have one of my uncles, the Democrat that I always get in conversation with. He works at the ABC store, and you got to understand that people come in the ABC store and they be diabetics, they be halfway dead, but they still be drinking. I mean, and he's like, yo, not little drinks neither. They drive 3/5 and then come back tomorrow for 3 more because they just drunk those 3. And I'm like, at this point, it's like a factory. They put all this stuff out there. They know it's going to tear you down. They know what's going to happen. They know the hospital and the pharmaceutical industry. Did you know that all pharmaceuticals are made out of petroleum oil?
Yes. Yeah. I
And
found
I was
that
like,
out some years back and was like, oh, wow.
wow. So I started looking at things differently. I'm like, so wait a minute, this is nothing but a house of cards stacked on top of each other. And you use oil not only for cars, but even for the people to
Yeah.
keep that industry going forever.
Yeah.
So
To very detrimental effects. But we
Mhm.
wonder why depression is going up. We wonder why obesity is going up. We just can't put our finger on it. But anyway, your taxpayer money goes to Food and Drug Administration, who also gets clearances for certain drugs and certain things that they're offering, but then they get lobbying money and funding from the very companies that they're supposed to regulate. So I don't know, weird conflict of interest maybe, but what happens when more people say, well, wait a minute, if your body can naturally be put into a metabolic state where not only are you less hungry, but you actually tap into your stored body fat and you have better sleep, skin clears up, which a lot of people, from an aesthetic perspective,
Mhm.
brain fog, clarity, uh, remedy other chronic illnesses, uh, high blood sugar, blood sugar levels stabilizing, just obviously losing weight, right? Which just causes is benefits that just keeps on giving. What happens when more people get hip to the game on keto or I would like carnivore because it's so simple? What happens when more people adopt this strategy and it hits some kind of critical mass? What do you think about that? I mean, just some speculation on that. What do you think?
um, I was listening to one of my teachers the other day, and he said, enlightenment doesn't happen in groups. And I was listening to that, and I was like, because whenever somebody says something, the way I see it is, it's not your job to believe them. It's your job to see if it's actually happened in your life. So I'm like, okay, enlightenment doesn't happen in groups. And I'm like, okay, so, but that's one of the reasons why I quit doing group exercise, because a lot of people come in there and they just want to be told what to do. They don't understand why they're doing it. They just want their daily allotment of exercise, and they're going to come in and do whatever and go about their way, not understanding what they did, why they did, what muscles they worked, or anything about how they feel. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to teach like that anymore. So I do mostly one-on-ones or two-person groups, because I'm like, I'm not going to do that. You're not going to come in here and then go out there and be dumb. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to spend my time like that. And I don't knock it what anybody else does, but I'm like, yo, this is my life and I get to choose how I spend it. Like I said, it's my business. I get to choose how I spend it, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing these group things. We can do one-on-ones or two persons or maybe 3. But besides that, no, because you got to be able to think. You got to be able to have a conversation. And like my kids, I'm like, when my kids know that every day we're going to have a conversation. And what I mean by my kids are the kids I train. I train about 10 to 12 kids right now. And we always have a conversation. And one of them asked me one day, he's like, why do you make us talk so much? I said, because you don't do it anywhere else. And how do you think you got here? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, how do you think you got here? He said, my mom and dad. I said, how did they get together? I don't know. But no matter what, they got in a relationship, right? Yeah. What do you need to get in a relationship? Communication, right? Yeah. Even if it was a one night stand, they still had to communicate for 5 minutes. Still, they had to communicate for 5 minutes. And I'm like, either way, you got here by communication. So that should give you a couple lessons right away. Number one, the purpose of life is relationship, because you got here from a man and a woman. Number two, that's how life goes on. And number three, you're going to have to learn how to communicate if you want to build a relationship for yourself and for your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I make my kids talk every single day. None of this good, okay, all right. No. You better use some specific words with me. I need some details. I need some names. So
let me ask you this, though, from the standpoint of, because essentially where I was going with the question about the critical mass, if people, more people adopted the carnivore strategy, and I say it that way based on kind of piggybacking off the part where you said they know that these things have benefits, and then the idea that from yourself, you said certain things won't. Trying to paraphrase what your coach said. Certain things don't happen in groups. However, even in an isolated sort of way, however people arrive at the information, however whatever delivery system, because apparently you came across certain things and they were saying there's benefits, then you tried it. So however people arrive at it, my thinking is, what do you think happens if more people come across it in whatever way and try it and it applies in their life? What do you think?
I think that's happening right now. And I think what's happening now is a lot of people are now buying their meats from different meat companies. Even some of my clients that I didn't know about, they're buying their meat from different meat companies, meat farms. So to get their stuff from local. And I think that's one of the things that's going on with the carnivore movement right now. And what I mean by enlightenment doesn't happen in groups is like, when you're in a group, you don't get the specifics. You might get, we're doing tree poles today. But if I'm with you and I'm doing tree poles, I'm saying you're using toes for this, your feet feel this, you're bending your knees slightly, you feel this muscle, this and that. So you're getting more specifics, more detail. So most of the time what happens is, if one person in a group gets enlightened, then they'll start to pass that on. If one person gets, if like I went carnivore. So I know that, if you want to lose weight, you want to be in the best shape of your life, and if you got some serious illnesses right now, you need to go carnivore for 3 months. And period. That's what I would do. Period. That is what I would do. That's what I did anyway. Actually, I did 100 days, but anyway. But
No, I actually agree with the premise, the idea of I never thought about that. Enlightenment doesn't happen in groups. And I get it, especially when you put it in the context of group coaching versus one-on-one coaching, then it's obviously apparent, because there's less of a one-on-one engagement and assimilation of the information, and communication is less direct. So that totally makes sense. But I guess I'm kind of scaling it up to the idea of, because I'm interested in what I think is brewing is like a golden era of come hell or high water, by hook or by crook. The idea that people want to get healthy, and I think people are realizing from a higher level, government, whatever, no one's actually there to save you, coming to save you. And in fact, most things are just distractions from you ultimately getting healthy. And at the same time, we're in the information age, supercomputer in your hand, information readily available, all the way to the point, fast forward, where people are just like, fam, just eat some meat. And you could, it's showing you how life is actually very simple and already on your side anyway. So I'm curious about the thought of, if more people get hip to the game on, go carnivore for a couple of months and see what happens, then the food fixes everything theory. I'm really interested in that and invested in that, because I think there's a lot of benefit. And even from a business perspective, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Because I'm realizing now, just talking to people about health stuff is super interesting to me, but there's so much of a market value thing to that, especially for Black folks. But let me ask you about this though. 100 days. So you kind of touched on the early benefits of it. How did the 100 days play out?
The 100 days were simple. The 100 days was simple, and it was like I said, it was real simple because like it's easy. It's bacon in the morning, bacon and eggs, um, coffee with a big dollop of butter. Um, Easy afternoon with I usually have some snacks with me in the car from if I'm going from client to client, some kind of meat snacks, and then home for a steak usually late night. So because I eat from like 2 to 10. That's my usual eating window. Or yeah, 2 to 10. So, but I understand my window. But and that's the thing. It's like
Because you're almost leveraging it with like an intermittent fasting kind of window too,
yeah.
like an eight
Mhm.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. But here's the thing. I've always been into like the whole chaos and order thing about life, understanding that. And like I was talking to you before about one of my teachers said this morning is one actually is there because of the other. Chaos is there because of order. Order is there because of chaos. And you got to decide which way you're going to be, where you're going to go. How are you going to balance you out? Do you want to be more order or more chaos? And that has put a whole bunch of rules in my life. Like, you don't eat before 12. It's just something you don't do. Not unless you're fixing breakfast for the family, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't eat before 12. When you walk around outside, you don't look at your phone and walk at the same time because you look like a dummy like everybody else. So
For
don't
sure.
do it. And you're completely destroying your attention while you're doing it. So if somebody hits you in the head, when you get up, all you can say is, I'm a dumbass. Period. So I've made a whole lot of rules for myself because I understand the basic, which is I'm nothing but a sophisticated animal. And if I don't have rules, I'll go chaos and blow up the whole gang. And so that's where the intense fit weight come from, was me making rules for myself, understanding that, okay, so if I don't have these rules, I don't know what you might get tomorrow. You might get the good guy, you might get the bad guy. But since I'm constantly consistently working on the good guy, most likely that's what you're gonna get tomorrow. Unless something real crazy happening and the bad guy just show up. Yeah, well, but most likely because I've been working on the good guy so much consistently every day, working out, training, putting good words in, getting good behaviors out, good efforts, etc., etc. That's most likely what you're going to get. But understand that bad dude is still there.
It
He's
almost sounds
there.
like what you're saying,
Mhm.
and this would be a
Go
joke,
ahead.
but it almost sounds like what you're saying is the carnivore diet turns you into more of a savage. I'm halfway joking about that, halfway dad jokish, but
The simplicity.
but there's an interesting overlap.
Mhm.
Go ahead, because I
Yeah,
know
the
you.
simplicity of it made you look at everything simpler, more with more simplicity. Put it that way. Because it was just, you're just eating meat. So now you're looking at everything simple, from, even like, what is it? Making your bed in the morning. My kids are always like, why you make your bed in the morning? I'm like, because if that's my only win of the day, is making the bed. If that's the only part of this chaotic day that I made order in, then I want that to be the first win and I want that to be done. That's my only and first win of the day. I'm going to take that one and go ahead and run with it. The rest of the day might be chaos. I can't control it. It's just what it is. But if that's my first win, I'm gonna look at that one and say, okay, I started with order. I'm gonna try to order the rest of the day. But if it runs amok, tomorrow's another day. So
No, I'm definitely a fan of the simplicity, especially for myself doing freelance work. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm at the mercy of other people's schedules, my clients, things shifting around, deadlines shifting, projects here and there. So when I got hip to the game on that and was like, well, wait a minute, and even trying it to where I just ate some steak and eggs or some salmon or whatever earlier today, then to come home and sitting down and I'm eating a steak and like, really? I'm just gonna eat this New York strip steak, and this is gonna be it. And I'm perfectly good. And after doing it psychologically, like I'm good. I'm not even worried about all this other stuff. The simplicity factor is amazing. Um, but you said something earlier off camera that I found super interesting, and this is something that I'm kind of working with myself. But as I'm getting leaner and leaner, because I'm definitely reaping those same benefits. coming up on 47 in a couple of months. The most fit I've ever been in my life, approaching 10% body fat while still gaining muscle mass because I'm manipulating the body recomposition. And you talked about carb cycling. So, and after the 100 days, I don't know if did you kind of just default back to a certain kind of eating pattern, adding in some other fruits, vegetables, carbs? What happened after the 100? And then kind of talk to us about the carb cycling.
My 100 days was horrible because it was over on Thanksgiving.
Oh,
yeah. So, bruh, I ate everything, got sick for a week. Actually, my whole family got sick for a week after Thanksgiving. For some reason, we got whatever flu was coming through, whatever people are getting now, we got then. And that took us out for a week. But besides that, when I came back, I started lifting heavy again too. Lifting heavy, I'm doing a lot of mobility stuff. I'm doing a lot of dog walking also. So I understand that, you know, to make sure that I replace all that energy, I have to eat more carbs. Because I look at it as protein is the building block. That's what builds me. Carbs are energy and entertainment. So I make sure I understand the entertainment part because you can get carried away with it. we all do.
So after being sick around Thanksgiving, you kind of flowed back into like walk us through like the usual like kind of weeks diet after that.
So usually what happens is on my carb cycling days is the days that I lift heavier, I work out more, I eat more. And usually, like I said, I don't eat until 2. And then my next one is usually around 2 or 3. And then my next one is usually around 10 or 11. So I'm doing about an hour and a half. So, and like I said, on my heavier lifting days, I eat more because I know I need more to replace that. On my lighter days, like today's not a workout day. So, like I said, I've eaten once. I had a big shake and that was it. But the thing is, if you pay attention to your body, you'll understand that on those days, you don't need more.
Right.
When you don't lift heavy, you don't need more.
Right.
When you're not doing all of that work, I don't need more. I've been running around all day. And because I haven't lifted, I haven't needed all that much food.
I noticed that exact same thing.
Oh, it's a whole different day then. I can have 2 steaks and damn be good.
Yeah, hunger signals definitely increase. Your body's like, give me more.
It's just understanding how you work. Again, it's just going back to understanding how you work. By now, we should understand how we work.
Well, I think that's part of the thing, like being cluttered up, the average person with just whatever random food and just the signaling of all these different weird chemicals in this stuff is throwing you off. So you don't really, the average person doesn't even know what true hunger even feels like. So I think that's another benefit of carnivore is when you kind of strip it down and you're just eating straight essential fatty acids, amino acids, and your body's like, cool, we can use all this. Let's go. And you understand that you kind of hit this reset button to the point where your body is like, oh, you don't even need that much. So yeah, you're good. You didn't really train super hard. So you're good with that one meal and a shake. You're fine. But then when you increase that, because, you know, obviously you're putting your body through a stress, then there's the idea of like the muscle fiber breakdown. It's going to want to rebuild that. So it needs more amino acids, protein structures to rebuild that, right? To at least to recover, if not rebuild more mass on to recover and repair for that for the next time. So it makes perfect sense. But I think we're so jammed up, our bodies are just confused, or at least we're not catching the signals right. We're not getting the hormones, the enzymes right, because most people are just so thrown off. That's what I've noticed myself. Like, I mean, I ate some eggs and sardines and a little bit of ground beef earlier today. I did do that jump rope session. So my hunger is a little bit up now. So it's like, okay, I can literally feel how it feels relative to exactly what I did within the last 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. And then I know tomorrow I'm about to go get this sprint session in and a good upper body workout. So I know my body's gonna be like, yeah, we're gonna need a little bit more.
Which is why I could go off with a shake today, because I haven't really worked out today. I mean, I've been moving around, but besides that, nothing strenuous. I did
super demanding.
The most, my boxing wasn't even that super demanding today because he's one of my regulars. So I know how he moves. He knows how I move. So, I'll eat later and pass out for the night. But one of my teachers, because I have many teachers, one of my teachers says about 20 years ago, he said, we have everything, but we don't have ourselves.
Man.
And now for the next 20 years after I heard him say that, I just started watching. I was like, yeah, because I live in Charlotte and I live in the very nice part of Charlotte, and I deal with a bunch of kids, and I've got to tell you, they have everything, but they have no control of themselves.
Jeez.
None.
That's such a heavy statement. But I mean, that's the beauty of, to have access to someone like yourself. But the nice part of Charlotte, they have everything they don't have themselves. I guess my first thought was, what about their parents? Or I don't know.
Bruh. It's very interesting. I'm a coach and I do personal development with kids, and a lot of the kids, actually, all of the kids I do personal development with have both parents. That's just a testament to how busy everybody is. They have both parents, but they're both parents that work in the house.
Oh, okay. So I was curious how that plays out. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, both parents that work, they might work out of the house. They might go to the office once or twice a week, but they're busy all the time. So busy that they shop out even all of the stuff to everybody else.
Wow.
I mean, I got one kid. He's got a coach for this, coach for that, coach for this, and I'm like, wow.
Oh. So these are people who are busy, have certain theoretically financial resources or allocation resources for their children, but then the children have everything, but then are missing theoretically certain levels of guidance to a certain level of wholeness in their upbringing, maybe
personal development, development within themselves. I mean, man, especially the boys, they're just their emotions are just all over the place. And one of the biggest things that I'm having a problem with is the world pushing them to think that they're supposed to act like girls, or that they're supposed to respond like girls. I'm like, no. We don't respond like that. We got a whole lot more respect for ourselves than that. We don't do that. What's wrong with you? And we'll have a discussion about it. But I'm like, no, we don't do that. Where did you get that from? My mom. Now we see the problem. You can't get away with that. You're a boy. When you grow up, you're going to be way stronger than your mom. You can't act like that. Because you act like that with the wrong person is going to put you on your butt.
Wow. I mean, that's an interesting thing. Like, part of my initial thought on hearing that is, that's great that this young guy has access to you in his life, but at the same time, if both parents are around, then his dad is kind of slipping. So there's that. I'm trying to think of it in the more positive outlook, but then it makes me think about all the children in that area with similar situations with their parents, or their parents having a similar situation, who aren't coached by you. You see what I mean? Like, the implications of that.
I remember, you know what? You ever heard of that phrase? Like I said, I have a lot of teachers. You ever heard of that phrase, a prophet would never be recognized in his own house?
I don't think so.
I don't remember where it came from. I think it's actually in the Bible. I know it's in the Bible right now. It just popped into my head. A prophet would not be recognized in his own house. And that means mostly, if you're a prophet in your own time, in your own town, you won't be recognized as a prophet, because everybody that grew up around you knows you or knew you. And that's who they're going to know you as who they knew you as, not as this new God-fearing prophet. So most prophets have to leave their town to actually become famous and become known. Because even in my own house, they don't listen to me to the dying moment. It's like my wife, the dog was dying. She kept feeding him this food. The dog was dying. I kept on looking at him dying. I'm like, I'm gonna let the damn dog die until she figured it out. And finally, she looked at me and said, I don't know what to do. And I looked at her and said, do you want me to fix it? I give it maybe an hour later. The dog has been moping around and all this. About an hour later, the dog comes bouncing around, playing, wants to go fetch the ball and everything. And she's like, "What did you do?" I said, "Simple. I fed the dog beef." She said, "Why did beef work?" I said, "Well, beef is a roaming animal. Dogs are roaming animals. The closest to him DNA wise is beef. You feed him what he works off of, and he does this. You feed him that other crap from what they made up in some store, and he does that. Simple. Do it works."
So you put the dog on a carnivore diet. Gotcha.
Pretty much.
But I mean, which is funny. I'm saying that obviously being ridiculous because dogs are carnivores, derived from wolves, which is an extremely interesting point. And I'm glad that story popped up because that's an interesting tie-in. Yeah, no, really interesting. I like how you add, from a personal development into the coaching, certain, philosophical approaches, having different teachers to draw from. That's really dope. And I think about that like in a sense of how I'm approaching coaching guys, and kind of my unique approach to this stuff is leveraging um, my study into social engineering from a media perspective, journalism kind of thing. So I've always known that about you, how you have these kind of other wisdom elements, is how I kind of think of it. And being able to apply that to something that's physical, and understanding that most of these physical um, activities and interventions are really more mental than anything. So I like being able to have something to bring into it like that.
It's like if you're into lifting weights, I'm gonna tell you somebody to listen to. Now, he's kind of crude and rude, but as far as the aesthetics, the lifting, the knowledge, he's on point. It's Dr. Mike Israel.
Oh yeah, that guy's hilarious.
Yeah, he's hilarious. But I've listened to him a couple times, and I've been doing stuff that he's talked about for years. So I'm like, yeah, that works. Yeah, that works. So yeah, so I'm like, yeah, he's one of the ones to listen to if you can get through with his jokes half the time.
Yeah, like sometimes it gets a little over the top. I mean, I'm all for just some wild jokes and whatnot, but in some instances, I'm like, I'm here straight for info. But I watch him. I have so many algorithm full of all kind of workout fitness stuff. But definitely, yeah, period. Renaissance periodization, Mike Israel, so many other influencers.
RPT,
kind of guys.
Yeah,
that's what's up. But yeah, I don't want to be too long with this, Coach DC. Let me definitely want to bring you back, because I'm gonna be doing more streams like this. But just wanted to, been way overdue to just catch up and chop it up anyway. But specifically want to ask you about kind of your approach to this whole carnivore thing, because so many people have been asking me about it, and I know you had been working with that even before myself. So like I said, I've been wanting to ask you about it, but I wanted to just get some documentation and some extra push out there for any people who are seeking information about that or some of the benefits or whatnot. But let folks know about anything you want to talk about, and then your channels and where they can find you. And because he's dropped some really dope short form kind of content, some brief just gems. So you definitely want to check them out. But let folks know where to get at you.
I am Coach DC just about everywhere now. I have a page on every single platform now. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. My actual TikTok is about to hit 10,000. So I have a page everywhere now. And usually my clips are about, like I said, conversations that we all need to have. Big conversation that we all need to have. And there's a whole lot of understandings in those clips that if we understand how this work or where this came from in ancient times, it would alleviate or assuage some of these stupid conversations like the red pill and all these other things. So you can find me at Coach DC anywhere. I'm always talking to kids, adults, families, trying to get us going in the right direction. Give me a holler.
That's what's up, man. I appreciate you. And then, like I said, we'll circle back and talk more in the coming weeks, months. But
definitely
dope catching up with you and chatting with you as always. So yeah, I hope you guys got some gems out of that. My guy Coach DC, found your channel, Coach and Sub, says AZ Tech. That's what's up. And I'm gonna close it out with this outro, and then DC, just stick around for a second.